that is the reality of the industry is, yeah, we always hear the same names, but that doesn't mean that's the only people having success in the industry. Welcome to the super producer. I don't even know the name of our podcast. It is the prolific super producer. I'm your host, Tyson, and this is my co-host, Nathan.
What's up, y'all?
And we are going to be talking today about how to write a banger, and specifically how many songs you need to write before you can actually write a banger. So super excited to dive into this. Before we dive into actually talking about writing banger songs, we need to talk about why we're actually creating this podcast to begin with. So Nathan, if you want to explain why our name is Prolific Super Producer, and then also what this podcast is for and who we're trying to serve here.
Totally. Okay, so this podcast is calling all music makers, all song makers, all people who want to take their music that they're making in their bedroom, they want to turn it into something that sounds real. You want to turn it into something that sounds legit and that sounds serious enough that you want to pursue some sort of professional outcome with that. So if you're looking for a podcast that's just like, hey, let's all gather around and talk about music and just stuff like that for your personal stuff, great. Maybe we're going to talk about that. That's totally cool. We have a heart for that. But really, we're trying to talk to people who want to take the music from their bedroom and turn it into something that can stream, something that can get in front of ears of other artists. If you want to write for other people, songs that are good enough to be like get on TV or get in film, whatever your professional desires are. We hope that this is the podcast that just gives you the encouragement, accountability, and honestly just straight facts that you need, like to be good big brothers who just tell it to you straight, right? So that's kind of the goal. That's the people we're looking for. Those are our people, man.
Yeah. So if you resonate with anything Nathan just said, then you're in the right spot, because we're definitely going to be delivering on everything that we've gathered, all of our knowledge, being professionals in the music industry, to help you get to your ultimate goal of producing professional music and being able to write songs, produce songs, all from your bedroom, as good or if not better than a lot of industry pros. So we chose the name Prolific Super Producer because we want everyone here to be able to produce a lot of songs and a lot of content over your creative life. And ultimately, we chose the name Super Producer because it's a term that is used to describe producers who do it all. So the best example that I have of this is Dave Grohl. So Dave Grohl, in my opinion, is the original super producer. So I'm not sure if you know the story of how the Foo Fighters came to be. So Dave Grohl, if you don't know who he is the drummer for Nirvana, right? One of the biggest hits in the 90s.
Who's Nirvana?
All right. If you don't know who Nirvana is, just Google
you shouldn't
it.
Be listening.
Yeah. So Dave Grohl was the drummer for Nirvana, right? And then that kind of fell apart for unsaid reasons. If you don't know those reasons, go Google it. And then Dave Grohl was kind of lost after that, right? He didn't know what direction to go in because his band had completely fallen apart and he didn't have any other marketable skills. And so he decided, okay, I'm going to figure out how to do something in music still. He went back to, I think he was in Seattle at the time, and he wrote a bunch of songs and he came up with an album. And so he's like, okay, I have my album now. I'm going to now go and rent a studio. He rented a studio for an entire week. In this 1 week, I'm going to record my entire album. He didn't have enough money to pay for an engineer to help him. And so he was engineering his own album while playing every single part. So he was running from the console, hitting record, to the live room, playing the drums, running to the coffee maker, getting coffee, and then running back to the console and stopping the recording, and then repeating with every single instrument for every single song. And so he was the original super producer. Basically, he was producing himself while he was recording every single instrument. So that's our goal, is to help people who are just super musically talented and ultimately help you produce all of your stuff like a pro. If you don't actually know, that album that the Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl really, produced was a massive success because he was able to put all of his heart and soul into that, even though he was all alone. So that is the goal of this podcast. Again, help you make songs that are better than the industry songs from your bedroom. Anything to add there, Nate?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, and the encouraging thing too is like, it's easier than ever. I mean, bless Dave, right? He's like in a studio, like with a console, hitting buttons and cables and faders and all this kind of stuff. And here we are. People are literally doing this with a laptop. you know what I mean, and like a cheap interface and a just good enough microphone. You know what I mean? It's just more doable than ever to actually make songs that sound legit from your bedroom and that go on to make you money. And the beautiful part is, why would I want to be a super producer? Yeah, maybe like down the road or something, you could outsource and collaborate with other people who do like mixing and mastering and production and some songwriting and top lining, stuff like that. But there's a lot of power in being able to wear all these hats, because assuming the best, right, that your music does go on to do something and starts to provide an income stream, you own 100%. You're not giving anything away to anybody else. And that's some powerful stuff, right? So I think this is going to be very exciting. Very, very exciting.
Yeah. It's also easy to get started because you don't have to wait on anybody else to like write your bass tracks or, record guitar or anything. You can just dive in and just do it. Do the thing that you want to do. So we're big here about not waiting for permission to be given to you to do something. You just go do it. So if you want to write a song, go write a song and then record it yourself, mix and master it yourself. And obviously you're going to improve all those skills as you go. And we're here to enable you to do that.
100%.
All right. So with that said, let's dive into who we are and why you should actually be paying attention to us.
That's a good point. We should, Why should you listen to us?
So Nathan, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and why they should be paying attention to you?
Hey, fair enough. Yeah, I get it. I would want to hear someone say this too, but it's always just like the weird part where you're just talking about what you've done and stuff. But yeah, I would say I am the super producer that we're talking about. I've never had like a number one hit or been in the top 10 of anything, but my skills to be able to create a song from scratch, like to write the lyrics, record the vocals, produce and program all the instrumentation, mix and master it. That skill set has provided a legit income stream for my family and I, mostly through kind of being undercover, so to speak. So doing a lot of stuff for sync placements, so film and television, as well as aligning with different production companies as a composer on their roster to do custom projects for people, businesses, sports teams, stuff like that. So that's kind of my world, is more undercover, using this whole skill set to create literally songs right here in my bedroom and use that as a service, for people. That's kind of briefly my start there. I'm definitely an artist first as well, so I do like making my own music and putting it out there. Well, that's not really the main objective, that I'm trying to like blow up as an artist or something. I still love doing that and still love like flexing those muscles, so to speak. So that's kind of like a brief minute elevator pitch. Yeah, why you should care.
Yeah, Nathan's probably underselling himself. He's a super talented producer. He's just amazing at what he does. Yeah, I guess a little bit about me. So my name's Tyson. I am a mastering engineer at Dinosaur Dog Mastering, and I help people mix and master their songs professionally, and I am very passionate about teaching that and passing on that skill, because there's a lot of just unnecessary things that you learn when you're trying to learn how to mix and master, like what's actually going to give me the best results. And so I like to just break it down very simply and give you the actual goods of how to mix and master like a professional. That being said, my own personal journey stems from when I was being an artist in college and I was trying to make it. Ultimately, I just couldn't find anybody who was actually going to be able to mix and master my stuff like I wanted it to be mixed and mastered. And so then that led me down this kind of production route. And then I eventually, after quitting my corporate job, within 4 to 5 months after that, I was actually putting myself out there as a mastering engineer and getting gigs and winning gigs over other mastering engineers. Oftentimes in the mastering world, you'll have an artist that sends one single master to multiple mastering engineers to then decide who's going to master the rest of the project. And so I was winning those projects even 4 or 5 months into my career as a mastering engineer. So like that's kind of my claim to fame in terms of just being able to step into the industry and winning these projects that I really shouldn't have been winning, essentially, but I had kind of learned all the cheat codes that then I want to pass on to you.
Well, and I guess the hope, right, between the two of us, right, if I'm able to kind of come from more of the songwriting up to production sort of facet, right? And then you're able to take over from that point on, like, how do we polish up the song? How do we get things sitting right? How do we get things like marketable and commercial, right? So like, we're hoping that between the two of us, we can cover the full spectrum of song creation, right? Just in your bedroom, from idea all the way to master. So
100%. Let's dive into the actual topic for today after that long intro of who we are and what we do. Let's dive into how many songs do you need to write to actually write a banger, because that is ultimately what we're going to be teaching you today. While we were doing some research for this episode, I came up with some stats that I wanted to share with everybody. So the first part is how many number one hits actually occur every single year. I didn't even know this. I probably should have known this, but there's multiple number one hits every single year. And also, there can be a different number of number one hits every single year. Based on how popular a song is, it can stay on the Billboard for 11 weeks. So basically, almost a fourth of the entire year, it could be on the Billboard number one slot. And using that measure as number one hits, the Billboard Top 100, being number one on the Billboard, then there's usually between 12 and 16-ish hits every single year. I think there was some years that was up to 20, but on average, it's around 12 to 16. Also, we pulled up the data of, okay, so if that's our goal, essentially, to get a number one hit, right? That's the ultimate level of success that you can really hit with a single in music. Then what we wanted to look at is how many songs are actually produced each and every year. And so we looked at how many songs are uploaded to Spotify last year, which was 2022. In 2022, there was 22 million songs that were released on Spotify.
Just let that sink in for a second, right? How many? 22 million? Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. I love all the music that's being made. I love that. That's great.
But the irony, though, that doesn't even include all the songs that were produced that year. Because there's tons of songs that were released on SoundCloud, Bandcamp, that are never touched Spotify.
Good
so these are just songs that were released.
Spotify.
Yeah, only streaming.
Oh, man.
So there's even more than that, but I don't have that data, so I don't actually know.
But we know it's out there.
Right. So minimum, there's 22 million songs being produced every single year and put out on streaming services. And so essentially that's what these number one hits are competing against. And so if you break that down and do the math, you have about a 1 in 1.4 million chance of getting a number one hit on the Billboard Top 100.
Wow.
And so we say this not to discourage you necessarily,
right.
but also to show you the level of success that those songs actually reach, beating out so many others, millions of songs, in order to get that number one slot. That being said, do you need a number one hit on the Billboard Top 100?
Obviously, no. No, you don't. No, you don't, right? So, yeah, we're saying all that not to discourage you, but maybe to help you kind of frame, right? How many songs does it take to write a banger? Maybe the better question, if you're not trying to compete against 22 million songs, is how do you write the best song yet for you, right? So I think it's more about what is a banger to you, because we're all in different seasons, right? And we're all in different parts in our journey. Maybe some of us are beginning and we're just tinkering around with a MIDI keyboard and a laptop. That's awesome. Love it. Keep going. Maybe some of us have already done stuff and we have songs streaming, we have songs out there, but we're trying to get them in front of more people. You have to compare your songs to where you were with your songs just a year ago or just a couple years ago or even just a few months ago. So I think a better thing is to be going for what is your number one? You should be trying to outwork and outproduce and outwrite yourself. I think that's a big mental shift that I know has helped me a lot when I stopped trying to compare. Don't we do this, right? We make a song and we compare it to our favorite artist who inspired us to write the song. Or we compare it to stuff that's out there. And does anybody else you hit that A/B test and then you die inside, because you're oh, my song sucks compared to this, right? So we've all been there, right? But I think it's more about comparing your songs to where you're at and not getting caught up. If you're at the beginning, fellow songmaker, I'm talking to myself 10 years ago. If you're at the beginning and you're comparing your songs to where an artist is at that's streaming and touring and they've already done their 10 years, right? You are setting yourself up for failure because you're never going to be happy with what you're creating. And I think you have to be happy with what you're creating in order to stay motivated and stay pumped up and continue to do the thing that matters, which is just take action and to just make another chorus and to just get to verse 2 for the third time this week or something. You know what I mean? It's just comparing yourself to yourself, fighting for your number one, right? Your number one hit. So I don't know. I feel like that's a big point.
Yeah, I think to add on to that, it's like so Nathan, you have a son, And your son is what, 4 months, 5 months old?
Literally 4 months old as of yesterday.
4 months old as of yesterday. So in, let's say, the next 6 to 10 months, your son starts walking, and then he starts, running around the house. We're not going to be comparing him against Usain Bolt or something, right? No. Like,
that's right.
He's not going to be nearly as fast because he's at the beginning of his development. It's the same thing. Yes. If you're a songwriter, you shouldn't be comparing your songs that you write. Your first 10 songs are obviously not going to be as good as, name your favorite pop artist or whatever. Yeah, name whatever your like aspiration is to be. It's never going to be as good as that because they've written thousands of songs. You've written 10. So, and I think that's a huge point though of, don't compare yourself against those, though, and really just measure your own success. So both of Nathan and I have YouTube channels, and so it's the same type of deal. No matter where you're looking for growth, just make sure that you are seeing that growth incrementally. The first 50 videos I put out all got less than 20 views, which is incredibly demoralizing when I say it out loud. But
I feel you.
I have videos now that have thousands of views, and so I'm slowly making progress, and so I just didn't give up. And so that's the whole key. I would have told myself 8 years ago, as I was trying to be an artist, I produced my very first project and then got so demoralized that it didn't do anything that I then quit and then went on a completely different route. And so if you're there right now, please don't quit.
Yeah, 100%.
And please continue writing, continue producing. You will get better and you will see that incremental improvement. Just don't expect that on your very first single because
100%.
The likelihood of anything blowing up the very first time is incredibly low. Granted, I also don't expect you to produce 1.4 million songs to then actually get a #1 Billboard hit. There are some shortcuts and there are ways to, improve your skills to a point where you can basically cut out 95% of the competition right off the bat, which again is part of the goal of this podcast and what we'll be covering in this episode and future episodes. So
100%.
When you're writing songs though too, I think shifting your mindset of what these songs are for will improve your songs, basically cut out that 95% of the competition that we were talking about. So not only taking the time and care to make sure that you are producing your songs well and learning what you need to produce those well at whatever stage you're at, but also ensure that your song that you're writing is not just for you. Because a lot of people, especially when we first start, we want to sit down and we just want to write our feelings out on paper, which I think is a great place to start. But recognizing that once that song is made, I'm a firm believer that that song is not for you anymore. Your process with that song was when you were writing it, and after it's written, it's for other people. Because ultimately, you want to be able to have your song produce an emotional response from other people. That is what music is. Music is emotion, and that's what you're essentially, if you're trying to make it in the music industry, that's what you're selling. You're selling emotion. If we want to dive into it, like, music is just wild. It's magic in terms of just sound waves, right, hitting your ears. Why does that elicit an emotional response versus like the truck passing me doesn't? Like, I can't explain it, but there is such a power in being able to create music. And ultimately, after that music is released, that is then put out there in the world for somebody else to make their own. Because think of your favorite song. Think of the meaning of that song as the writer intended it versus the meaning that you have for that song personally.
Huge. Like a good example of that, there was this music video, I cannot remember the song right now, but it was a music video that Imagine Dragons had put out years ago. And I loved how they did this, exactly what you're talking about, this visualization of how the artist is writing the song and then how the audience is receiving the song. And they showed that through like a clip of Imagine Dragons playing a concert. This was the scene. They're playing a concert. And as the lead singer is singing certain lines of the song, the camera starts to get off of Imagine Dragons and starts to pan into the audience, and it starts to highlight certain members of the audience. When the audience member is highlighted, it shows their emotional response to like what their meaning of the song is. And then it goes to another member of the audience and shows what theirs is and how it's totally different. And so I just think that's huge. Like your song, is for you, and when you're making it, and I think it has to feel authentic for sure. Like don't be putting stuff out there that you don't feel like is you, or you're just trying to be someone else. But a good song should be able to mean a bunch of different things to a bunch of different people. And I think it would be, you don't want to take that away from the audience or take that opportunity away from people. So that's good. So I think another big piece of this, like when we're trying to write right? The banger. And hopefully maybe you're coming on board and being like, okay, the banger for me, right? Like what is that next thing that you're pushing for in just your own songs, you versus you? I think it's a big important step is to define what your ultimate goal is. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know about you, Tyson. Like, I totally used to be like, yeah, I would love to have a number one hit. I would love to have a number one song. I would love to have all this stuff. But I never thought any deeper than that. It was just, I just want the achievement. I just want to see my name in a top 10. I just want to see whatever. But I think something that a lot of people miss is like, what is the goal behind just the reward? You know what I mean? Like, what does that actually mean to you? So like when you're making songs and you're going for a number one hit, is it just because you want a number one hit or because you actually want a career? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure most of us in music, we all know the term one hit wonder, right? And they have their name for a reason. And hey, maybe that one hit paid them very well for a very long time. And that's great. But I don't think a lot of us want to be a one hit wonder. We probably want to think a little deeper than that about having a career. And here's the thing, and this is why we're talking about this in episode freaking 1, is because we care about you. And if this like rubs you the wrong way, you probably shouldn't listen to the rest of the episodes, okay? Here's the thing, and it took me a while to figure this out. To transition from music as a hobby to music as a career, that is a very difficult bridge to cross. And not a lot of us song makers make that journey. You know, like you're crossing the bridge from hobby to career, and you see the skeletons of other song makers. No, I'm kidding. That's a little dark. It's Halloween. Maybe that's where my mind's
at. But the other side of it though is that it's so true though, because we all know that friend who we used to be in a band with, who tried to make it in music and didn't make it because he or she did not adopt that mentality of taking it seriously enough to actually build it. Granted, if your goal is just to do music as a hobby and make music that is fun, then by all means, that is 100% your prerogative to go out and do. And I would fully support you in that mission. But if your goal is to build a career in music, then you do need to have some mindset shifts of how you approach music and also how you're managing your time around music and so many other facets of knowing your ultimate goal with music is so critical in actually being able to achieve that goal. Because my goal of writing a number one hit could, Nathan was saying, if your number one goal is to write a number one hit, not build a career, then you might end up writing a number one hit, but then not having a career long-term in music. So 100%. You have to be very, very specific on what your ultimate destination is and then choosing the steps to move in that direction.
100%. And I gotta say too, like right off the bat, a lot of people are obsessed with number one hits, and that's great. I mean, what about number 2 and number 3 and number 10? And number 50 and number 100. You don't think all those people aren't making money off of their music? Like Billboard top whatever, like number 87. Okay, maybe we don't know about that one as much. I'm sure they're doing fine. You know what I mean? Like, I think we need to have a broader category of success where it's not just, I don't know, maybe Tyson, you can feel like this too. Whenever I would tell people that I'm doing music, and even still sometimes tell people I'm a songwriter, I'm a producer. Yeah, I make music. Their eyes glaze over, and it's because I'm not Beyonce. Like, you know what I mean? Because some people, anyone else feel this, right? Like you try to explain this to family members at Thanksgiving or buddies at work or something. I don't know. And you take the risk, right? You're like, oh, I don't even want to talk about this with Aunt Sally. I know how this is going to go with Aunt Sally, you know? And you're like, yep, what you up to, son? And you're like, yeah, just making some music, you know, working on that stuff, about to have an album that's coming out. And the eyes are just like, yep, okay, because they don't get it, because in their head, success as a musician is the big people that they see, the people dominating top 10. You're not Beyonce. How are you making money? You know what I mean? When there's just like a whole other category. There's so many people making money with music, good money, that we've never even heard of, you know?
There's way more artists that have careers in music that they earn a full-time living from than have ever had a song on the top Billboard or the Billboard Top 100 ever.
Love that.
That is the reality of the industry is, we always hear the same names, but that doesn't mean that's the only people having success in the industry.
Not at all.
So is your goal to have a number one hit and be, quote, famous, unquote, or is your goal to have a sustainable career that you can do what you love day in and day out for the rest of your life? Or the rest of your working life, at least.
Yeah, right. Big point. And if it's just for fun, then awesome. It's just for fun. But like, just if we're going to be your big brother for a second, then own that. Like, just say it out loud. Yeah, this is just for fun. I don't really want to cross the bridge. And that's cool. And you can just have so much fun living your life. Your life will be still fulfilled. Music is a big part of it, but you just chose not to make it the thing that you're going to use to provide. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's just okay. So I hope that was clear. We're not coming down on people who who don't want to do it for real. It's just, we're trying to help you. Like, this podcast may not be your jam, and it might ruffle some feathers, if you're just trying to have, if it's just about fun and about the art,
I would add on to that, though, too. Don't lie to yourself in terms of if you actually want this as a career, or you actually want to at least even like a side income from music, and you want to push your music out there in front of an audience, get a fan base, engage with that fan base. If you want that, then own that as well. Yeah. Because I know so many musicians, myself included, that I will tell people I'm not that serious about my own music because I'm afraid that it won't actually do anything, and I won't be able to gather that fan base. And so if I then say I'm just doing this for fun, that's all it will be, and I will never actually achieve what I truly desire. Ooh. Don't lie to yourself either direction. Like, if you are saying like I'm going to make it as a career, but really you only want it as a hobby, then don't lie to yourself. Just say, yeah, I'm doing it as a hobby. It's fun. It's fun for me. It's a nice creative outlet. But also on the other side, don't lie to yourself saying that I don't want it as a career when you really actually do.
Love that. That's huge. That's a gem.
Oftentimes when we are finishing a project, we are so involved in that project that we kind of lose any sort of objectivity when it comes to it. So this is often an issue in my world when it comes to mixing and mastering, right? People have just listened to the song countless times at this point over the last 3 months, and so they don't actually know what the song really sounds like anymore because they have zero ability to be objective about it. One measure that I like to use is when signing off on something, say you're, signing off on the final recording before it goes to mixing, or you're signing off on the final mix. All right, think to yourself, am I still going to like this song in 2 years? If I'm 2 years removed from it in the future, try to put yourself there and think about listening to that song in that state. Are you still going to be satisfied with it? Because I think that would change a lot of decisions in the songwriting process, in the production process, in the mixing and mastering process, because you're going to think about the long term, what this song will mean for you in 2 years, rather than what it's going to mean for you in 2 months. Because we all want that big payoff of, oh, it's released and it's done. Like, that is granted, that is a major accomplishment, and so you should feel good about that, but don't rush to that point to then feel poorly later in the future about it. I've had so many projects. I actually went back and remixed and mastered one of my old projects that I recorded 8 years ago because I didn't like it, and I knew that I couldn't really move on until I just finished it. And so I went back and I remixed and remastered it with the skills that I have now that I didn't have when I first recorded it. Granted, I don't actually recommend that because it was a waste of time. But at the end of the day, like, that's the cost though of having a project that you're not proud of. So therefore, like, it always grated on me when I even thought of that project, and I had that in my mind. So when you're again, any step of the process that you're in, think about, am I going to be proud of this in 2 years' time? And
love that.
Ultimately, I think you're going to create way more bangers that way than almost any other way.
Dude, but also, can we just, as all song makers here, just wave the flag and salute Tyson for a second, because he did what all of us are scared to do, which is go back and open up old projects from years ago and battle those creative demons again, man. Oh my goodness, that's my dream. I'll just say right now, that is my dream. I have all these songs, right, that I are good, but I didn't finish. We all have those, right? The good ones, but I didn't finish them. And but they're from years ago. And I'm someday I will have the courage to do what Tyson did and go back in there and finish it, That's awesome.
It was even actually more awkward than that, because it wasn't that they were just on an old hard drive. I had to go to the producer who helped me produce the project to ask him for the multi-tracks.
There we go.
So that was an interesting conversation. Luckily, he still had them. I was actually a little bit surprised. I think he was missing one track out of the entire 4-song EP. And so
way to go, that guy,
he was
for
missing
his file
one
management.
Yeah, he was missing one kick drum, so I had to
that's amazing.
figure out how to do that. But yeah, it was. So I think the very last point that we want to make, we want to bring this home for you, make this super practical in terms of what should you be doing to write your next banger. I have a rule that I like to throw out there to all songwriters, producers, anybody trying to write music and produce music, especially if you're trying to take it seriously and write songs that are going to be put in front of people intentionally, or you're going to spend any amount of money advertising or marketing your music after it's put out there. And that is write way more songs than you ever plan on releasing. The odds are that 10% of your songs are going to give you 90% of your results. Or to use the Pareto's principle. Or is it Pareto's?
Pareto's principle? Yeah.
It's 80-20?
Yeah.
That's Pareto?
Is that Pareto? Or is that the time one?
Yeah, I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
there was some old monk that decided that 20% of your effort gives you 80% of your results, and that is no different with songwriting. So write way more songs than you ever plan on releasing. My rule for myself is I actually just recently wrote an EP for myself, and I wrote 50 songs to then produce 5. So that's always my ratio of I want to produce 10 times more songs, write 10 times more songs than I ever actually end up producing. And that could be partial songs. Most of those are like a verse and a chorus, and that's it. And then I just there's nothing to this, or, it's not as strong as some of my other songs. I'm going to move on. And also, by writing more songs, you hold each an individual song less closely. Because you're able to just let that one go. You're like, okay, I can let that one go because I have these other songs. Because right when we write a song, we're just so tied up in the emotion of writing it that we just have this super intimate connection with it. It's like our baby, right? Our little song baby. Yeah. And we just can't let it go. And so we need to write more songs. We have to have more song babies to then let some of those song babies go.
Yes.
This analogy is breaking down. At the end of the day, writing more songs will give you way better results. If you do nothing else but write more songs, you're going to write better songs. I guarantee it.
100%. It's more darts at the dartboard. More at bats. You're gonna every swing that you make, right? You're gonna hit one. Like, I heard this awesome quote. Oh man, I forget who it's from, but it's like, I think any average person, like who's not a Major League Baseball player, right? Like, any average person could step up to the plate with a bat versing a Major League pitcher, and if they just stayed there and kept swinging, at some point they're gonna hit something. Because it's just, you gave yourself the time, you gave yourself the reps. And so I think what Tyson is saying, I fully endorse. You have to commit to a volume of work, and don't be overwhelmed. We're not saying go write like 10 songs a week or something, but it's more about the mindset shift of committing to the process of, when I sit down today to write, I am not trying to write a banger. I am not trying to write a hit. I'm trying to get better at my craft and identify as a songwriter. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is what I do as a songwriter. Every day I open up and I try to do something. I try to make something. I try to mix something. I try to whatever, right? It's not trying to sit down and try to write a hit, because for me, when I would sit down and convince myself, okay, I'm going to write the best thing I've ever written. Number one, it never happens, because you get crippled and paralyzed by perfectionism. You're inviting perfectionism over to spend the night. If you're like, I'm about to write a banger right now, you know what I mean? And so you have to commit to that volume of work and know that it just frees you to create. If you know that, okay, this is another at-bat, this is another practice, I don't know, you think about this with anything else in life and it just makes sense. And I hate to use the cliche example of fitness and working out, but it's just one I think a lot of people get, right? If you can't do that many push-ups, what do you have to do to be able to do more push-ups? You do more push-ups, and you try to outdo the last set that you did of push-ups. You did 10, now you did 11, now you did 13. And the way you get better is by doing the dang thing. It's no different with songs. Songwriting's a muscle. Yeah. Right? Would you say mixing's a muscle and mastering's a muscle,
100%. Yeah. Any skill that you're trying to learn fits the same mold. And I live by this quote, and I don't want to say who I'm stealing it from because I don't actually know. If you want to get good at something, do it long enough that it becomes unreasonable for you to not be good at that thing. If I want to write songs and I want to be a songwriter, I want to be a good songwriter, then I'm going to write so many songs that it becomes unreasonable that I don't write great songs. If I write 1,000 songs, I'm going to be awesome at writing songs by the end of it. It's basically guaranteed because I do it so long. Yes. Unless I just follow a formula and have no creative thought into it,
sure.
Yeah, maybe. But the point is, it's unreasonable to expect that I wouldn't be better than when I started.
100%. Huge. So to help you bust out this 10 songs to get that one great one, and then do another to get another, right? To help you commit to a volume of work, I have found the biggest unlock is trying to figure out your workflow. It comes down to what are you doing to prep yourself when you're sitting down to create, and then what kind of system do you have in place to take you from the idea that you have all the way to the finish line with your song, right? When I adjusted my workflow, I got over demo-itis. I suffered from that disease for years and years and years. When I changed my workflow, I got more songs done. More songs done means more at-bats, like we were just talking about. More at-bats means more home runs. So I put together a completely free guide. It's all for you. I really wrote this for myself 10 years ago. You can go to finishsongsguide.com, and it's a simple 5-step process to help you take an idea for a song and walk it all the way through the finish line so that you have another dart on the dartboard. So finishsongsguide.com, totally free, and it's totally for you.
And if you are at that point where you have already finished your song, or you go pick up Nathan's guide at, freesongsguide.com?
Finish Songs
Finish
Guide.
Songs, sorry, excuse me, not free songs. It's finishsongs.com. After you pick up that guide, you finish some songs and you're ready to mix and master those songs, then I created a free course to help you finish those songs and actually produce them like a professional. It is called the Pro Mix Formula. It covers all of the fundamental skills that you need, and also whether you're a beginner or intermediate or even advanced, these are the fundamental skills that will apply and will level up your mix if you apply these principles inside of your mixing process. So you can get that at promixformula.com, and it will redirect you to a page where you can actually get access to that course completely free for you, just so you can finish your songs. So after you've written them, you can actually finish them and be proud of the ultimate results that gets put out there into the world. All right. So lastly, thank you for engaging with this episode and also listening to us ramble for the last 40 minutes or so.
For real.
And also, if you want to hear more from us, then whatever app you're on, leave a review. Go to Apple Podcasts, click on that review button, and just give us some stars. And also, let us know what you're struggling with and what you want us to talk about in the future, because we're going to keep creating these episodes as long as you keep listening to them. And so if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a review to help your next door super producer produce his songs like a professional as well. So make sure that you're leaving us a review, telling us what you want to hear about, because we will 100% take your suggestions to heart and actually produce episodes that best serve you. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Take care, guys.